Welcome to Winsight Live. We've got a great lineup for you today. Wanted to draw everybody's attention to a news story, a Q&A with Neil Stern, the newly named CEO of Good Foods Holdings that we have on our website. Our longtime freelancer, Amanda Baltazar, conducted that interview. It's great. A lot of insights about the direction he's going to be taking these banners, which of course include, Bristol Farms, New Seasons and Metropolitan Market. So he's really going to be taking it sounds like an aggressive position, and acquisitions are in their future. So everybody check out that story when you have a moment. Phil, what are you seeing today?
Well, Jen, first of all, what I want to do is I want to again compliment that story because I thought it was a great story. I know Neil for years. I had a conversation with him as soon as I heard about his new position a couple weeks ago. And, you're right. I think that this is a sector to look at because similar to what Irwin Simon did at Hain years ago, which was to assemble all these healthy brands that nobody was paying attention to. I think what we're going to see is Neil assemble a whole bunch of healthy supermarkets and really go under that banner. So it's a space to watch for sure. So the story that has me perplexed is that Hershey's announced, I guess it was yesterday, that now you can buy directly from Hershey's Reese's cups. And it's $29.99 for it. For a 2.5-pound box of Reese's. I don't think it's for Halloween necessarily, but for the holidays or for the upcoming pandemic. But doing some very simple math and going online and looking at Instacart, Walmart, and so on, it's more expensive to buy it directly from Reese's than it is to buy it from Instacart or Walmart or anybody else and get free shipping. So I guess this is their play to try direct to consumers. We're seeing so many, iconic brands trying to do that. But frankly, I think it's going to blow up in their face because I don't know about you guys, but I don't know what I would do with 2.5 pounds of Reese's cups.
It sounds like a lot.
It is.
Sounds like a stomach ache. Yeah.
Yes, sounds like a stomach ache. You're right. So Jen, let's talk about fresh. Unfortunately, we had some little technical difficulties last week, and I know you had a bunch of reports on fresh. John and I spoke about ShopRite, what they were doing, but there's a lot more that what's going on with fresh, especially from the new report from Deloitte.
Yeah, it's really, I feel like it's a really fascinating time in fresh right now, and sort of how it's changing the store, even like the store design in the perimeter. So Deloitte did this study that said that 9 out of 10 consumers say that fresh food, and so that's like the whole fresh perimeter, not just fresh fruits and vegetables, but meat, seafood, prepared foods. Fresh food makes them happy. That's 9 out of 10 consumers. That's a compelling stat. And then they also looked at they kind of categorized consumers into 2 types, contemporary and conventional. And contemporary makes up 40%, while conventional makes up 60%. But it's the contemporary consumer that's driving all the innovation in fresh. And they're also ordering more online. There's been this, sort of before the pandemic, people were reticent to order fresh produce and prepared foods and things like that online because they didn't trust that the person who was going to be shopping for those things would choose, make the same selections that they would. And that seems to be going away. I'm sure largely driven by the pandemic, where now it's like 68% of the contemporary consumer have no problem purchasing fresh items online and trust that the shopper at the store is going to pick out the best quality examples that are available.
So I don't know if you've seen what Luvo's done with their Performance Kitchen brand. They're testing it right now in QFC, sorry, QFC in Denver. So you might want to check it out. But what they've done is they've got this line, and I think it's up to about 40 SKUs, all health driven and all fresh. And what they're doing is they're actually replacing the location of where the salad bar was in the supermarket, and they're putting these fresh foods, again, nutrient driven, in the front of the store. And the results are dramatic. And I think we're going to see a lot more people doing exactly the same thing.
Absolutely. That was, when I visited the opening day of Whole Foods Ideal Market, they had so much of that, really tailored to that, kind of health conscious consumer on the go. I think they even said, the sign said, for people who travel. I was like, I don't really understand that, but
who's going to travel? Right.
So, we talked about ShopRite. I know you guys, picked up the pieces for me with that, but they're doing this fresh table rollout of, where they've got in 3 stores, they've got all of these different options of fresh meals. So it's like ready to heat, ready to prep, however you want it, they're giving it to you. And similar to, the company that you just mentioned, I interviewed the CEO, Michael Lippold of Fresh Realm, and they're working with Giant Eagle to do these, complete fresh meal kits, or not a kit, but single serve meals. And again, you can have it in a ready to cook or ready to heat format. And Michael was saying that he really sees in the very near future that, there's this shift away from shopping for ingredients to shopping for meals. And he sees this becoming a $45 billion market in no time. That just, despite all the talk about during the pandemic, people wanting to return to the kitchen and cook all these meals, I think everyone is fatigued to the point of, making 3 meals a day and snacks. And they're looking for these fresh meal solutions from their grocery stores.
I would agree with that totally. I think that people got tired really quick of baking their own bread. They panicked. They did all that stuff. But I guess my question is, unfortunately, Dr. Fauci and a whole bunch of other people are saying that we are going to have a wave 2. It might even be bigger than a wave that the first wave was. What does that do to fresh? I mean, we still have our meat processing facilities at less capacity, about half the capacity that it was pre-COVID. So where are all these fresh ingredients going to come from if, in fact, this happens again?
It's a good point, and the meat is a real question mark. I know from the Produce Marketing Association Fresh Summit was last week, and
right.
I know, Phil, you're a fan of Kathy Burns, their CEO.
She's fabulous. Fabulous. Yeah.
Always gives an absolutely spot on state of the industry address, which she did again this year virtually, and she really talked about, do we want to return to, don't wait to return to normal. Like was the old normal really so great? She's
right.
Like, help us create the new extraordinary. And it was a very uplifting speech. And she, featured, sort of video commentary from suppliers kind of talking about how the pandemic, what they've learned from the pandemic and how they're moving forward in a different direction. And so I interviewed, some of our longtime friends in the produce industry, and to ask them, what they're feeling, seeing, and everyone used the same words. It was like flexibility, strength, team building. I think there's really certainly, and I'm sure that this is, in the entire grocery industry, but certainly in produce and fresh produce, there's a real commitment to coming out of this better than we went into it.
Absolutely. So Pat, we've talked a lot about, restaurant closures and so on. On the Upper West Side in Manhattan, very famous chef opens up Oxbow Tavern, has to close it permanently, and now it's a pop-up shop for cashmere sweaters. How sad is that? And give me some good news about what's going on with restaurants.
Well, there are independent restaurants that are actually collaborating now instead of competing with each other. And that's, excuse me, that's a way that they're boosting their business. So a group of 16 female chefs got together in Chicago and started this group called Let's Talk. It was kind of at the beginning of the pandemic. And they came up with, brainstormed ideas for how they can weather this, crisis. And one of the ideas was to create collaborative menus for the month of October. So for 4 weekends in October, 4 of them band together and they curate a meal that they sell to people in the suburbs and in the city. They limit it to 80 meals because it is kind of a complex operation. And they sold out immediately the first week. They're all like women who have very interesting restaurants. Some are very well known, some are little known, but this collaborative effort really panned out for them. And they're going to continue with things around the holidays. They plan on doing holiday baskets with all of them.
So Pat, I find that fascinating. When you talk about collaboration, are they new menus, new recipes that the 4 of them have gotten together to create? Or is it, one item from this restaurant, one item from this restaurant, one item for this restaurant?
No, they've curated meals with one menu item from each of the 4 restaurants each week.
Got it. Very cool idea.
Signature, could be a signature, like from Frontiera Grill. They offered the chocolate pecan pie, which has been on their menu for 23 years or something like that. So, some of them are signatures, some of them are new items. A lot of them are global flavors like Vietnamese and Korean and Ethiopian even is participating. And then in LA, where you are, Phil, Rezzy, which is a platform like Open Table, where you can make reservations. So very few people are making reservations at restaurants now, as we all know. But instead, they did this drive-through taste around featuring 10 chefs outside the Hollywood Palladium. And so people bought tickets to drive through and get a different meal or different tasting from each of the 10 chefs. And it was also really, they sold out.
Very cool. Yeah, so Rezzy has really, especially out here in Southern California, has really propelled itself very quickly, much more than Open Table. And I want to say I'm seeing more mid to upscale restaurants that are now using Rezzy. And I think one of the reasons is that right after you have the meal, you get, a survey from Rezzy that says, please rate your meal that when you went to whatever the restaurant was. In fact, I just had that, last night, and it's simple. And, in your world, you've known about Rezzy for a long time, but I don't know if the average consumer does know that much about Rezzy. And what do you think? Do you think that that's going to get bigger and better than Open Table?
Well, I think you need several platforms because it depends on the restaurant. Like each of these platforms charges the restaurant a different fee for, making the reservation. So I guess whatever works out best for the operator is what they're going to choose. But in Chicago and in New York, there's also Talk, which is another one that caters to the more upscale or mid-level restaurants. And they've been doing a lot of carry-out meals. And Talk actually helped the Chicago female chefs with their operation. So that's where people signed up for the meals and reserved them and, bought the tickets. So
do they all charge the restaurants about the same, or is one of the advantages to Rezzy that it's less expensive than Open Table?
I don't really know the answer to that, but I think it depends on, the amount of business you give them and a lot of variables, but they're all pretty similar. But I think Rezzy also puts you on an automatic wait list. So if you can't get in, you can automatically get put on a wait list, and they'll notify you when a table is available. So I think that's a really good service.
Yeah, especially here in California, basically parts of California, Palm Springs, for example, today at 3 p.m. Pacific, they're going to vote, and it looks like they've been having indoor dining capacity at 25%. They're going to cut that out because the rates of COVID are going up. So you're going to need these Rezzys more than ever before if you want to be able to get a table, even if it's outside. Brett, what's going on at Sheetz? We talk a lot about Sheetz, about how great they are, about how great their food is, how they're really changed, one of the C-stores that have changed the model for what a convenience store food operation is. It's not the roller grill with the green hot dog anymore. What's going on over there?
Sure, Phil. So food aside, I've spoken about recently how the convenience store industry, in addition to every industry we cover, has really struggled with hiring and retaining employees during the pandemic over these past 8-ish months, really. So Sheetz just announced that they plan to hire more than 3,000 employees company-wide. So it's in Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and Ohio. And, Sheetz, massive chain, 14th largest chain in North America. So this is a huge deal. Sheetz has had a few hiring initiatives over the last couple of years. In 2016, they made an initiative to hire 8,000 people. And then in 2019, they did 2,500 employees. So this is big. The latest initiative aims to increase Sheetz's total employee store count across its footprint. And specifically, they're looking to hire full-time positions at store locations, as well as in the food operations center, distribution services, construction and maintenance, its corporate departments. This is really good news to hear from the C-store industry, just because of how difficult hiring has been. And just to add a little cherry on top, Sheetz, they offer a really cool competitive package with its benefits to these people. So they have medical and dental insurance, 12 weeks maternity leave, college tuition reimbursement, which is pretty cool, employee stock ownership plans. So cool stuff coming out of Sheetz right now.
Absolutely. And, I want to stress what you said about full-time and the benefits. There's a small chain out here, supermarket chain, but it's a, small store, 10, 15,000 square foot. It is called Erewhon. Sorry about that. Brain freeze for a second. And Erewhon only, Tony Intaki, who's the owner of it, will only hire full-time employees. He says that that's his secret to success, that he doesn't have, this rotating level of people, that somebody has 5 hours a week, somebody has 10 hours a week. He will only hire full-time people. And being an Erewhon shopper, I can tell you that it does make a difference. It really does, where you really see people working hard and being, getting benefits. So I'm so happy to hear that Sheetz is doing that as well.
Yeah, I agree that the full-time aspect and the benefits aspect probably boosts morale among these people so much.
Yeah, and FMI Speaks has just come out. In fact, tomorrow's Lempert report that you will see on Winsight Grocery Business talks about that specific area of Speaks. It talks a lot about the pandemic, obviously, but you hear about that from us constantly here. A focus just on the employee practices, how it's changed, how training has changed between 2019 and 2020, even pre-pandemic. So it looks like our industry is finally waking up, whether it's because of the $15 an hour movement, whether it's because, it's harder to find people to work at retail than ever before. But that's great news. And Jen, let's talk about Whole Foods, because, we talked a couple weeks ago about how Whole Foods didn't do as well during the pandemic as certain other retailers have. What's going on with Whole Foods? Are they just so focused on Amazon Fresh and Ideal that, are they giving up on Whole Foods?
No, I think not at all. I mean, actually, just as you guys were talking about Sheetz, Amazon Fresh just announced that they're going to be hiring 1,500 employees at a minimum of $15 an hour plus benefits for 4 new stores in the greater Chicago area. And these, it appears as if 2 of them are coming online like any moment now, like within weeks. But they're also, Whole Foods continues to expand. I know it's new store season. Everyone wants to get their new stores open before the holidays and certainly take advantage of those sales. But Whole Foods is open. By the end of this month, we'll have opened 5 stores this month.
Wow.
So they've already opened the Ideal Market in Denver, which we talked about earlier this month, Jacksonville Beach, Florida, earlier this month. And then later this month, we've got a Sherman Oaks store, and then a Sunnyvale, California store, and a Fort Lauderdale, Florida store. So kind of tackling both coasts pretty heavily. And when you look at those areas where the stores are going into, I mean, it's like right across the street from a Gelson's in California, or right across the street from a Sprouts. In Florida, you have 5 Publix surrounding it's just amazing that they're going into what these seemingly already saturated markets with these new, beautiful stores. And John Springer, who couldn't be with us today, but he has a story on our website right now with some research from Placer AI. They're the data company that analyzes foot traffic. And, we've talked about this before, that, Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, at least initially, like really took a hit in the pandemic, where, people were packing it into, the conventional supermarkets and the Walmarts and Targets. They were not going to Whole Foods and Trader Joe's like that. And so this new research shows that, while Trader Joe's traffic has come back, Whole Foods traffic really hasn't. So it's interesting that they're, continuing this kind of aggressive expansion at a time when they seem to be struggling to get, shoppers in their stores as much as they did before the pandemic.
I want to go back to what you said early about Neil Stern. We're going to try to get him on Winsight Live to talk to us. My first question is going to be, hey, Neil, you going to buy Gelson's? Because when you look at how Gelson's is being surrounded by other stores, whether it's Erewhon, whether it's Whole Foods and so on, that might be at the top of my list.
I like that question.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so we'll start with that question and we'll reach out to Neil and get him on. So Jen, why don't you wrap us up with some good news?
I would love to. And I'm going to consult my notes because I'm going to talk about something that I don't know anything about, which is a football reference.
Hey, I'm with you. I know nothing about it either.
So Hy-Vee is, I just thought this was a fun one. Hy-Vee is partnering with the Julie and Kirk Cousins Foundation. And I guess Kirk Cousins, I'm sorry that I don't know, this is the starting quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. And so they're doing this exclusive cereal launch, which is going to be, it hit shelves last week in all Hy-Vee stores. And it's a Cousins Cinnamon, where the min is spelled M-I-N-N for Minnesota, Snaps cereal. And the proceeds are expected to raise $21,000 for the Twin Cities Boys and Girls Club Foundation. So
very cool.
Really cool.
Very cool. I'm sure it doesn't, but does it talk about the nutritional information of that cereal at all?
Of the Cousin Cinnamon Snaps?
Yeah.
Sure, it has a lot of sugar.
They could, they could probably, make even more than $21,000 if they lowered the sugar and lowered the fat in it and made it a healthier cereal. So with that, thank you all for joining us today on Winsight Live. Again, our archives are located on Restaurant Business, CSP, Supermarket Guru, Winsight Grocery Business, and we will see you back here. What's today? Today's Tuesday. So Thursday, we'll see you back here Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, and John Springer will be back with us as well. So thanks all for joining us.